Hello everyone, I'm James Milan, and I want to welcome you to this special episode of Justice in the Balance, our ACMi Public Affairs series that looks at our criminal justice system from all angles. I say it's a special episode because we're hitting the road today, going on site at the Middlesex County House of Correction, or jail, and we'll not only be going to the grounds, but we'll be going inside of the facility. We'll be talking to Sheriff Peter Katujan about new programs and innovative units that are come online in the last couple of years. And we'll visit a couple of those units, one that's specifically for 18 to 24-year-olds and another that caters just to military veterans. And finally, we'll talk to a resident of the military veteran ward who has been there just about since the unit opened 2 years ago. It's a privileged glimpse into a world that we don't often get access to, and we're very happy to be able to present it to you today. Thanks for joining us. As always, there are a ton of new programs and new news for you to share with us coming out of the Middlesex Sheriff's Department. So give us the highlights.
Give it a go. Well, so James, I'm going to run through them quickly because there's a lot going on. Quite honestly, in the last few years, we've become a leader not just here in Middlesex or even in Massachusetts, but across the nation. Recently, even becoming international. We had a group of people that came from German corrections professionals that came here to visit a couple of our programs to see what we're doing because they were based on some of them on the German model. So it's very gratifying to know that you're driving something special and hopefully changing the way we think about corrections and the opportunities we can find in corrections. So a couple of the programs, as you know, we're going to be speaking about the housing unit for military veterans, which we're in
where
right
we
now,
happen to be,
which
right?
has a remarkably low recidivism rate. We can speak about that in more detail, but we've got our People Achieving Change Together for young adult offenders 18 through 24. Remarkable, that's the first in the country of this type in a jail setting. And this is the one that the German delegation came to visit to see how we were doing with something on this. We've got a data-driven justice initiative, one of 3 pilot programs around the country from the Laura and John Arnold Foundation, where we're going to breaking down silos between corrections, emergency rooms, first responders, and law enforcement to try to find those people that are in greatest crisis to be able to address their needs and hopefully get them out of the system. Repeating in and out, correctional, criminal justice, ruining their lives, costing a lot of money, and really never moving the needle.
So, sorry, let me just interrupt.
Yes.
So you're saying that's a data-driven kind of cooperation of acquired information between a number of different kind of agencies?
That's right, we're all working in silos. So we will see people in corrections. The police will see certain people, but then they won't see the people, those very same people, into the next town. The emergency rooms are filled with people in crisis, and the first responders are picking up people and transporting people in crisis every day, multiple times. And yet we're just cycling, costing a lot of money and never getting them out of the rut or the place that they're in by identifying them and getting them that help. This is a remarkable program. There's only Long Beach, California. There's Johnson County, Iowa. And then there's Middlesex County, Massachusetts. Already we've got 40 of the 54 cities and towns on board. We're working with a hospital association, many of the ambulance companies, and it's going to be remarkable when we start to pull the first round of information together, de-identified, to start to say, okay, these are the numbers of people that we're seeing all too often in our places. Okay, now what are the next steps? Not with identified data at that point, but as we step into the next to make sure it's HIPAA cleared, CORI cleared, we can now step in, watching out for people's rights, but also getting them the help that no one knows that they need,
right.
They do need.
So let me just clarify for the audience and for myself as a proxy for the audience that when you say de-identified and when you mention CORI and HIPAA, et cetera, what you're trying to do is balance people's privacy rights.
That's right.
And so you're not identifying, you're not looking at this information in a way that identifies any individuals, but you're using that information in the aggregate or whatever in order to be able to.
And that's the first phase, just so we can have as a proof of concept. There's a certain number of people that are visiting our places all the time that are in crisis. So I'll give you one proof of concept we've already run out of Cambridge. 26-year-old female over a 4-year period of time. 14 engagements with first responders, 14 engagements with police in only one town, so it's only Cambridge. 14 engagements with first responders were overdoses, transportations to hospitals for overdoses. 14 times. No one would ever really pick that up outside of first responders. They wouldn't do anything with that. The 14 engagements with police are even more troubling because only one time was she a perpetrator of a crime, allegedly. The others, she was a victim or a witness of a crime. But now you've got 24 engagements in just Cambridge alone with one individual, a female 26-year-old. That person is in crisis. So we can get more proofs of concept about how this might work in the future, and then we can step into whether or not, what we do next. But we want to make sure that we're seeing what's out there first, and then taking the next steps as we see fit in the future, as we've thought it more through.
Right, you have to do things one step at a time. You
That's
really
right,
do,
yeah.
Even though you know where you'd like to get to, but you have to start.
Exactly, so,
so different places.
That's, we've got a tablet program that's really one of the first in the country where we're giving it for free, and they get to watch.
You're talking about tablets like iPad.
That's right,
iPads,
Yeah, it's a
like
company called Edovo out of California, I believe. And basically we've got them in our units, and you can watch movies and you can listen to music, but you have to earn credits to do that by engaging in educational opportunities and vocational opportunities and anger management and parenting programs. And so there's a great opportunities for them to learn, especially for those in pretrial, meaning they're not being charged with a crime. We don't really have programming because they don't even get good time. We can allow them the opportunity to be able to grow through this. And by the way, they now get to go to court and show a series of certificates that they've completed for programming to say to the court, I've been trying to do what I can to make myself a better person. Will you consider that in my sentence or maybe lowering my bail? So it's another great way to get people out of pretrial more quickly and give them some opportunities that otherwise they wouldn't be getting at all.
Are these tablets universally available to everybody who is incarcerated here for whatever length of time?
So right now we started with a couple of pretrial units. We've now brought them into our Humvee. We've brought them with specific program for the young adult population to the PACT program. So we're starting to spread them out, but we wanted to get them more into the pretrials because there they don't have much programming. It's not a system that has programming. So we're trying to build programming in for the pretrial. The sentenced, they get a lot of programming opportunities, but we will add on. And again, I didn't want to make money out of these units. We give them out for free so that you don't have your haves and have-nots. You haven't built another class system inside of here. And it helps, not only does it help the individuals, but it helps create a calmer, more peaceful and more orderly atmosphere and a safer place in here for our officers as well as the men themselves.
And obviously a program such as this is really an opt-in program for the inmates, in other words, or for the folks who are incarcerated here. They get to choose whatever classes they are going to take, and then use those credits.
And a lot of times they just go through their own assessments of what their needs are. And I know that at some point you wanted to speak about what we do for our women. So
absolutely.
What people should understand is that our women are not housed up here in Billerica. Because we can't keep them in the same units or in the same facilities, really. You have to have completely separate sight and sound by law. So the women historically have gone to Framingham, the Department of Corrections. They have a special wing where they have a number of sheriff's offices that house their women, both pretrial and sentenced. We have, generally anywhere from 80 to 100 women. About half are pretrial and half are sentenced. What I'm proud to say is about Middlesex Sheriff's Office is I saw the inequity, the fact that men here had access to certain programs and even certain release opportunities through work programs and bracelets that the women didn't have because they were not with us and we didn't engage with them very much. So we actually started bringing more of those opportunities to our women. They can be released on bracelets. We can help them with a lot more of their programming. And right now we're the only sheriff's office that are actually engaging directly with our women in Framingham to provide programming and opportunities. And the thing is this, women are a very different population. They're much smaller population overall than the men, but they're growing at a faster rate than the men. And they're also a different population. The issues of mental health are significantly different. The fact is that they're 5 times more likely to be primary caregivers of children than the men are, so the impact on the family is different. They tend to be more convicted of more and held on crimes that are nonviolent. So accomplice and conspiratorial crimes, many times, with a partner that is a man. And so they're kind of stuck with the actions of another because they were in a relationship so often. So very different population that needs to be treated differently, and we're doing everything we can to bring them more opportunities in Framingham, because quite honestly, once again, that's another situation where we pay attention to the men, but we don't really pay attention to the women because there's such a small population. It's just not right, it's not equitable, and we decided to do something about that here at Middlesex.
You know, you've described a number of programs, and we really appreciate it, and I know that this is a hub of innovation in this way. But you also alluded to the fact that here in the Humvee unit, you've got a very, very low, a remarkably low recidivism rate, you were saying. How is it that you measure the effectiveness of these programs?
Yep. So, so one of the challenges when you're trying to sort of measure efficacy is the fact that if you're the first to do something, it's kind of hard to check that. And also in jails, you have smaller numbers, so you don't have the chance to do blind studies, you know, where you can actually do randomized control trials. And quite honestly, I want to give everyone the opportunity to do something good and not leave some to be on their own and struggle maybe just to show that the program is working. So what you do is you generally compare them to recidivism rates across the state. In this unit, we've had recidivism rates with about 170 people, I think, that have gone out, of about 7 or 8%. When you think that the state average over 3 years is, you know, anywhere from 50 to 60%, it's a remarkable thing. But again, you know what? It's not rocket science. We're doing deeply therapeutic programming in here, cognitive behavioral therapies. We have high-level partners from Home Base, which is a partnership between the Red Sox and Partners Hospitals, Mass General Hospital, people that come in from McLean's Hospital, Veterans Services, Veterans Affairs, Harvard Law School sends folks out here. When you put all these people together, you create a unit that is highly therapeutic. But then what's really important is, because of the status of these men and because of our engagement with them and sometimes even upgrading their status, their discharge status, we're able to get them into the programs that help them specifically for some of their needs. And it might be PTSD, it might be traumatic brain injury, but it could be just anything else that's ailing other people. But these people, because of their service to our country, have access to programming that maybe others don't. That's why it works. And sadly, that's a model that we should be replicating for general population, not just for veterans as well.
And we had a chance to talk to one of the residents of the Humvee unit to find out what his experience has been. Brendan, first of all, obviously if you're in the Humvee unit, that means that you are a veteran of one of our military services. So which service were you in?
Air Force. I was in the United States Air Force, F4 crew chief.
And how long and in what time period?
I was counting delayed enlistment, 79 to 84. During, I guess it was supposed to be peacetime, but Lebanon, Grenada.
So you saw some action even though it was supposed to be peacetime, is what it sounds like?
Yeah, indirectly. I mean, the Air Force is a little bit further from the action until we actually fly over. But.
And then, so that it ended obviously about 25 years ago almost. So there was a good length of time between that. But then let's just skip forward, and for whatever reasons you find yourself within this facility. And I know that the Humvee unit itself opened back in 2016, I think January, March, somewhere in that area. Are you one of that kind of original group of folks who came into the unit in that general period?
Not the very beginning, but close. I think it opened in January. I came in the end of March or April, something like that.
And how did that come to be? Were you do you have to self-select? Do you have to try and get into that unit? Was it offered to you? Tell us a little bit. From an inmate's perspective, how do you end up in a unit like that?
Well, I was originally at the Essex Correctional Facility in Middleton, and the veterans officer in the facility approached me and asked me if I wanted to interview to come to this unit here. And as he described it at the time, it sounded great. I said, sure, definitely. And
And obviously there was no such unit in Essex at that time.
No, there isn't to this
And there
day
still
either.
isn't.
This is the only one in Massachusetts, and at the time, either the first or one of the first in the country. We've had other jurisdictions, states, sheriffs come in and tour the facility, so it's quite a prototype.
And so, obviously, it is a facility that is restricted to, or the people who are eligible for it are all veterans of the armed forces in one way or the other. And I understand that it also includes ROTC and other, folks who may or may not have seen action of any particular sort. But aside from the fact that it is composed of people from the military services, what's different about this unit than other kinds of situations here at the jail?
Well, to go from the sublime to the ridiculous, there are units where you are in a cell 22 to 23 hours a day. At the Humvee, it's set up like a barracks, first of all, so everybody being a veteran's very used to a barracks type setting. We can interact a lot more. And in this unit, even since I've been here, the amount of support from the outside and the amount of support that the sheriff's been able to, I guess, coordinate and facilitate, and it's actually mind-boggling.
So tell us a little bit about that. You said amount of support from the outside. Give us a couple of examples.
We have people from the VA hospitals, the veteran service offices around the cities and towns that come in here, and they interview veterans. They do one-on-one counseling with veterans. They do group therapy. The sheriff has opened up the in-house education programs like the janitorial, culinary to people in the Humvee. There are the latest Middlesex Community College teaches a course here, and the national program, the Inside Out program from Framingham State. They actually bring 10 students from Framingham State in to take a class with 10 inmates from here.
And you've done those classes, I think, right?
I'm on my third one now.
On your third one.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that experience from your perspective, and also what you've observed, I guess, from about what its impact is on the students.
Well, from my perspective, when I first took it, it was like, oh geez, back to school. Back to school with the kids. But I fell back into it fairly quickly. But what I did notice is the kids coming in have been exposed to the stereotype of institutions and inmates and all the stuff that goes along with that. So they come in, let's say the first day bug-eyed, not knowing where the shoe's gonna fall, to by the third class or so, everybody's on a first name basis, everybody's talking about lessons, everybody's interacting with what's going on in the news, what's going on here, what's happening with this. And it's actually a real college class. And by the time it's over, the students don't see the inmates as inmates, and the inmates actually don't really see them as outside students. It's, hi Mary, what's up? Hi Joe, what's up?
That's great. And what kinds of courses have you taken? You said this is your third one. What are the courses you've been taking?
2 psychology classes and a sociology class.
And how's that been for you? Is it something that you had an interest in already, that you'd studied at some point in the past, or is this something new?
I'm more from an engineering background myself. I was a victim of the stereotype of psychology. I thought, okay, psychology is the study of people who are batty. But
oh, I see. So you're saying you had a stereotype of people who would study psychology or be psychologists or whatever.
oh, sure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And that there in itself has gone away. So I really enjoy that. We have studied white-collar crime. We have studied public mental health issues, just a wide variety of things. And I think psychology and sociology are probably best suited for teaching in an atmosphere like that, because there's probably 20 different ways to teach the same thing. So it's a lot easier to get your point across to the AARP people like me and the 20-year-olds. You know?
Yeah, so that's another thing I think is that we were noticing we had a chance to visit the unit earlier and saw that there's quite a wide age range within the unit itself. How does that play out from an AARP perspective? I share that with you, but how does that play out? Just having that kind of range of veterans within the same unit there.
It's really not any kind of an issue or anything. Of course, you know, the old timers think that the kids do things differently all the time, but everybody's a veteran in there, so we've all been exposed to much the same sort of backgrounds, the same sort of training. And I mean, we have people who are Vietnam veteran Purple Hearts to people that just got out of MIT and they just got in the military. So, but I think the sheriff's office saw a niche, for lack of a better word, that could be, if measured correctly, as big as the opioid epidemic. You know, there are veterans committing suicide every minute. There are veterans dropping through the cracks for services, and the sheriff's department the sheriff specifically, has been able to identify, isolate, and you know, while still providing a service to the community of corrections, provide treatment. We've had first responders from 9/11 come through here. We've had people who, you know, literally, I would say, in my opinion, have had their lives saved by the unit.
And just as we're going to wrap up here, let me ask you, you've described a number of the innovations that are part of the Humvee unit. And I would just like to, I'm just curious, what would you say, because it sounds like you've really taken advantage of as many of the opportunities as you can, what would you say are the one or two absolute best things about the way that this unit is organized and about the opportunities that are made available?
Well, it's organized from, like I say, a barrack setting. So your veterans are not actually being thrown into an over-confinement that they're not used to. One of the greatest programs, I think, in here is, you know, besides the industry programs and the education programs, is they have a PAC unit here for young offenders. And we have a group of veterans that go up to that unit and talk to those kids and stuff like that, kind of hoping, like, not a scared straight, but, you know, don't wind up like me, kind of thing. So the interaction between our unit and the now other parts of the jail, just one more unique aspect of the program.
Well, Brendan, want to thank you very much for taking some time to talk to us today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
And best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
It was a pleasure.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Yeah, so you cited the fact that 170 people have gone through this unit and are now out in the world, or the vast majority of them, because as you said, the recidivism rate is very low. That reminds me of a topic that we've spoken about before and that we've often covered in our criminal justice series, and that is, what are the support services that are available for people once they are, you know, once they have been released from incarceration? And you know, is there a place? Can you, as a sheriff's office, provide any kind of support in that way for people once they are no longer officially within your system?
That's a really great question, James. So let me just say this. I'm proud of the programs, as you can tell, we have here in Middlesex Sheriff's Office. I think you'll find them, they're second to really none in the country. I think they're as good as or better than any place in the country. But the fact is, you shouldn't have to come to jail to get good programming. You should be able to get that in your community so you don't have to come to jail. Because for many, jail can help lower recidivism, but for some, it can actually increase. So you have to be very careful about that. What the greatest problem is, we can provide all this programming inside, but if there aren't the support services necessary to help them on the way out, then it can all go for naught. And that's the greatest frustration. You can provide great programming and then it doesn't mean anything in the end. This is where society needs to step up. Now, we have a number of programs where we are working with people after they leave our doors. But when you think about it, that's not our responsibility.
Right.
We're doing it because no one else is doing it and because I believe that's part of the future. And if I can show some information about how it's working, then maybe we can get more people to do it, the state to support it, and then maybe other operations to do it. So that's really what we're driving, is that post-release care. So many things fail. They can, joblessness, homelessness, educational failures, but part of it is that social network. So that when you send people out and they only go back to their home and to their neighborhood, and they might go back with, most people go back with the intent of not hanging around with the wrong crowd or of hanging around with their friends, not doing the wrong things, and they really mean it when they get out. But in the end, we're all human. We need to hang around with somebody. We need to socialize with somebody. Who else are we going to hang around with but people that we knew before
you're familiar
before
with.
we came?
Yeah.
So the idea of putting people out there as navigators and reentry coaches and support out there turns that on its head. So now, instead of a support network that brings you back to jail, you now provide a support network that keeps you out of jail and helps you move on to a more fulfilled life. That's really what we're all about here.
I'd love to wrap up by asking you something. Again, to go back to the fact that you're describing a number of innovative programs happening here, and I've got to say that it's a weird way to put it. I think I may have even said it to you in a previous interview, but nobody is lucky to be incarcerated.
Right.
But it seems like this is as lucky as you can get to be incarcerated in a situation such as Middlesex County House of Corrections. And what I'm wondering is, that's because you're taking into account the well-being of the people who are here and their potential futures through these innovative programs. How is it that you create that culture that makes people open to programs that, as you've said, if you're the first one doing it, how are you going to know if it's the right idea?
It's hard to compare an apple to an apple if there's no other apples. It's the first apple. And I didn't even mention a few other programs we're doing where we're struggling with that very thing. The fact is, I come from a different background. I was a prosecutor for 4 years in Middlesex. I then went to the legislature for 14 years, and I was the chairman of the Committee on Healthcare, among other things. And that gave me a perspective that's a little bit different than many others that come into corrections, and that opportunity. And when I first started, it was not easy to move and to grow and to progress. But as time went on and more people came in, I was able to bring in more people that shared that same vision. We've been able to move that very quickly. And when you're changing a culture, you have to be thoughtful about not breaking the organization when you're trying to push it to change, right? You know, it's kind of fragile at some points. So to change it one program at a time, and if you change it with a program and you can show that the program works, it makes sense, it has good information, you can actually use the data that you're collecting to correct the program or eliminate it should it not be working. And then you can show to the staff that's working in there, this is something that's providing hope for these individuals, and it also provides a safer working environment for you. Then the next shift and the next shift and the next shift become much more easy and embraced, quite honestly. And we've had a couple of cases like that where we've started a new unit. We were worried, will anyone even apply for this unit, and have dozens of people apply for a new unit, and we were just not even sure that there was going to be buy-in. So each time you move, you move it down the road a bit, it becomes a little bit easier the next time, as long as you're careful and deliberate about what you do, you collect your data, you can show it works, and if it's not working, you stop it and you change direction. That's the key. You have fealty and fidelity to the data and the experience, because if you're not willing to change something that's not working, then then people will be replicating bad programming instead of good programming.
Well, if it's not abundantly clear by the end of our conversation today, you are a busy man. in charge of, a lot of other very dedicated folks putting together programming and support systems, et cetera, that hopefully are really an encouraging move in the right direction towards achieving what we all want to achieve. So, given how busy you are, the fact that you're willing to sit down with us, first of all, invite us in, and make accessible to us so much of what you're doing, and then sit down with us for this 15 minutes. We really appreciate it very much.
Thank you, James. And the fact is, a correctional facility is not a fortress on a hill, it's part of a community, and you have to have the community understanding what you're doing, and you have to show the community that these are people that are really not that much different from either myself or you or anyone that might be watching this. This is public service in its most pure essence, right? These are the least of us, the people that are down and out, the people that many in society would say, let's just forget about them, they're bad people. And I get the chance to try to give them a second chance, hope. And that's very powerful. That's why I'm passionate about it. That's why that's the part I love about this job.
Yeah, and I have to say that I'll just wrap up by saying that speaking to you, starting with you, but also speaking to lots of other of your staff and of the folks who are working here, it's so clear that you are not giving up on this population. Instead, you are finding the hope.
That's right.
There, and conveying that hope to them,
Yep.
along with, again, useful data-driven programming and one hope.
Too many people have given up already, so this is our chance to show we're not going to give up on you.
Well, obviously an ongoing project. We're lucky enough that we know with confidence we'll be able to talk to you again
Absolutely.
soon and find out what the latest innovations are at that point.
Look forward to it, James.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's not every day that you get to go into a county jail and talk to the people whose lives are being played out there, either because they work there or because they live there. We're very glad that you were able to join us for this glimpse into that world. And on that note, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my colleague, Sarah Alfaro Franco, who is the producer of this series and does all the hard work to make this kind of access possible. Thank you, Sarah, for all you do. Thank you, audience, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.